Monster Itch, Ghost Attack by David Lubar. Chapter 9. Sarah read the rest. Joshua Thistle's words were fancy, flowery, and old-fashioned. It would be easier to tell his story in my own words. He'd been standing near a window at the back of the general store when he'd heard men plotting to rob the bank. He felt the best thing to do would be to take the money away and put it somewhere safe. He took the ledger, too. He was afraid the robbers would use it to figure out who else to rob by seeing which people were always depositing money. Right after he'd slipped out of the bank with the cash, he'd spotted the robbers riding hard down the main street. He'd run off in the other direction, hoping to get to the safety of his friend's farmhouse. That's when the storm struck. It was a monster of a storm, with torrents of rain and a punishing wind. Lightning struck all around him. He was already terrified by the robbers. Now, with booming thunder and blinding lightning, he was beyond terror, in total panic. But he pulled together all of his courage and kept going. He'd gotten lost, and then he'd gotten in bad trouble. He'd stumbled over a cliff. I'll never forget. In the middle of all the fancy words, one simple sentence: "My leg is broken." He'd crawled into the cave and waited for the storm to pass. Then, as the sun broke through the clouds, he'd written his story in the ledger. It was his greatest fear that the townspeople he loved so much would think he was a thief. His last words were, "I leave my story here as a testament to my innocence, and will now endeavor to seek help. For I fear my strength is drawing, and my spark of life will not last much longer without aid." And that was it. It took me a while to stop shaking. The weather was sunny and warm right now, even in the woods, but I couldn't help seeing myself huddled in a small cave, wet, injured, and terrified, cringing with each bone-rattling boom of thunder. I imagined what it would be like, writing desperate words in a journal and hoping someone would find them, so I wouldn't be blamed for something I didn't do. "So he left the cave," I said. "But he never reached the farm," Sarah said. "This proves he wasn't a thief," I said. "We can clear his name." "We can," Sarah said. "We should bring the ledger right to town," I said. "We should," Sarah said. We looked at each other. I knew what Sarah was thinking, and I'm sure she knew what I was thinking. It would be wonderful to clear Joshua Thistle's name with the ledger, but it would be wonderful, spectacular, amazing, and unbelievable if we showed up in town with the ledger and the money. "We need to look," I said. "We need to look," Sarah said, agreeing with me. "But where?" I stared at the mouth of the cave and then glanced in the direction of the farm. "Maybe he left the money with the ledger," I said. "If he didn't, it's out there in the woods, somewhere. Maybe right next to—" She didn't finish her sentence. She didn't have to. I knew what she was thinking here, too. If the money had been with him when he died, we wouldn't find just the money. It was already bad enough I was seeing ghosts. I didn't want to add a skeleton to my list of spooky experiences. "Let's check the cave first." "Go ahead," Sarah said. "Me?" I asked. "Yeah, you," she said. "I already found the ledger. It's your turn." "Okay, but I'm not going too far." I knelt and reached inside. I started to feel around. Ouch! I yanked my hand back. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked. "Yeah, I just touched the sharp corner of a rock," I said. I reached back inside and felt around more carefully, hoping I'd discover some kind of sack. But there was nothing on the cave floor except for dirt and stones. I crawled a little farther inside, but stopped when my knees reached the mouth of the cave. It was too dangerous to go any farther. "No sign of a bag," I said. "I guess we have to search the woods," Sarah said. "It looks that way." I started to inch my way back out. My hand landed on the sharp rock again. Wait a minute. Mom was always telling me not to make assumptions, and Sarah had reminded me not to presume someone was guilty without evidence. Everyone had assumed Joshua Thistle was a thief. They were wrong. The people who did the reenactment also assumed the money was in a sack. So did Sarah and I. Maybe we were wrong about that too. I slid my hand past the sharp corner of the rock, along the top surface. It was flat and cool, like metal. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked. "Why'd you stop?" "I think I found it." I reached in with my other hand and felt around for 3 more corners. Yeah, it was a box, nestled among the dirt and stones. I worked it free and dragged it out of the cave. "You did it," Sarah said. "We did it." I dusted off my hands, got to my feet, and looked down at something that had been lying hidden in the cave since the day Joshua Thistle died. It was a rusted old metal box with a handle on each side. It wasn't a bag, like in the reenactment. I guess people get history wrong sometimes, or they change things a bit to make it a better story. But that didn't matter right now. I picked up the box and shook it. "Feels pretty full," I said. I couldn't get the lid up, but Gramps had tools. Sarah and I had done all of the adventurous parts and had all the fun. Now it was time to get some adults involved. We hiked back to our bikes and rode to the farmhouse, holding the box between us. I tucked the ledger under my shirt. "Well, you two look like you've been on an adventure," Grandma said when we walked into the house. "We sure have," I said. "Guess what we discovered?" "More bouncy squirrels?" Gramps asked. "Not even close," I said. "Get comfortable," Sarah said. "We have a story to tell you." Across the room, far away enough that the itch wasn't too bad, the ghost watched us. Sarah told our grandparents all about Joshua Thistle and about how we'd found the ledger and the box after we'd figured out he'd had an accident. She told them everything except for the part about the ghost. Gramps got his tools and opened the box. I held my breath as he pried back the lid, and then I gasped at what I saw. The box was filled with money. It was old-fashioned money, but real bills. I felt like we'd found a treasure chest. Sarah and I grinned at each other. If grins could talk, ours would be saying, "We are totally awesome." "We should take this right into town," Gramps said. So we got in the car and headed to Thistle's Falls. As we parked, Grandma said, "I wonder whether we should show this to the major or the sheriff." "Neither," I said. Everyone looked at me. "I know the perfect guy to take care of all of this." I pointed at the door of the Historical Society. "Well, what brings you back?" Mr. Holworth asked when we walked inside. "You're not going to believe it," I said. "Take a seat." It was my turn to tell the story. After I was finished, I saw that I'd made the perfect choice of who to give the ledger and the cash box to. Mr. Holworth called the mayor, the sheriff, the town council, and the local reporters. Pretty soon, everyone was talking, taking our pictures, congratulating us, and discussing how they'd have to change things for next year's Thistle Days. "You'll be back, won't you?" Mr. Holworth asked. "You have to come back." "Of course we will," I said. "Great," he said. "Next year you can lead the parade, and I need to get to work writing a new scene for the reenactment." After the excitement died down, we headed out. "That was quite an adventure," Grandma said. "We should celebrate with ice cream," Gramps said. Sarah and I looked at each other. "Maybe tomorrow," we both said. "I think we'd had too much of a good thing." Sarah pointed at my arms and smiled. I looked at them. The blotches were completely gone. "We did it," I said. "We sure did," she said. We drove to the house. There was a familiar car in the driveway. It was my parents'. "It's not time to go back, is it?" I asked. "No, but your folks and Sarah's folks wanted to come out for dinner," Gramps said. "Great," I said. I didn't want to leave the farm yet, but I guess I really did miss Mom and Dad a bit. I saw them waiting for us on the porch. As I ran toward them, my arms started to itch. Oh no, I looked around. I didn't see the ghost, but there was a blotch in each of my arms. If Mom saw this, she'd definitely take me right home, and that wasn't fair. Sarah and I had a whole lot more exploring to do, and we'd done everything the ghost wanted. The blotches grew darker and bumpier. I slowed, crouched down, and gritted my teeth. I knew the pain that was coming. But that didn't matter. I was about to have a much bigger problem than another encounter with an unbearable pain. I was heading for a major encounter with an unstoppable allergy doctor. Up on the porch, Mom called, "Alex, what's wrong? Are you sick? Did you have an allergy attack?" A word formed on my left arm. Thank. A word formed on my right arm. You. Both rashes immediately started fading, but Sarah had caught up to me and got a quick glimpse of them before they disappeared. "You're welcome," I whispered. I was glad we'd help, but I was even more glad my itchy adventure was over. I hoped I would never meet any other ghost who made me itch. I was definitely sick of monsters. I went up the porch to get a hug from Mom. "Oh, Alex," she said, throwing her arms around me. "I missed you so much." "You're killing me," I screamed as her arms wrapped around me like a pair of boa constrictors. But it felt kind of nice.